Court TV. We've been bringing you a trial from Florida. It's an interesting case, although some of the testimony varies in its complexity. It involves a case of a family of a man who smoked cigarettes for 50 years, and the family is now suing the tobacco companies. Testimony ended today during the cross-examination of a chemist called by the defense, the tobacco companies, to basically say the tobacco companies did the best they could. And John Carro, it ended at kind of an interesting point. And let me throw this out to you. Over the years, I have been very much involved in debates about what kind of drug policy we should have. I've written about it, debated about it endlessly. And of course, an issue that always arises is to look at heroin, cocaine, marijuana, the health problems versus the problems of putting people in jail, and how else can you approach those issues. And invariably, comparisons are made to tobacco, which people say, well, that's a legal product. Many people argue that the mortality from tobacco is more serious than from any of the drugs we've banned. And yet, there is a strong feeling by many people that prohibition failed with alcohol, is unsuccessful with drugs, and probably wouldn't be very good with tobacco because you'd have a huge black market, which would raise other issues. That is an illegal market. And yet, in the context of this trial, this witness keeps bumping up against, or maybe the plaintiff is, I don't know how you see it, the fact that essentially the companies are conceding there's a connection between cancer and the product. So if the alternative is to ban it, that's one thing. But if you don't ban it, then what else can they be asked to do? I mean, that's sort of where the tobacco companies are. How does that get resolved from a jury's point of view, since banning it, while it might be an option the Congress could discuss or we could discuss at the dinner table, is not part of the jury deliberation?
Well, when they've spoken to jurors on cases where the tobacco industry has won in the past, a lot of the rationale for it is, hey, it was your conscious decision. So really what they're saying is, it is a legal product. There's enough information out there that you knew it was bad and you decided to do it anyway. There are smokers on this jury. They all know the risks. People don't pay attention to long-term risks. That's the problem here. If, you know, as I said, if you knew it could kill you within a year.
Or if you took a smoke and you'd be dead in 3 days.
Right. That's different. But when people, 30, 40 years, there was the rationale, I read something in the paper yesterday, people just think, well, in 30 or 40 years, if I get lung cancer, they'll have a cure for cancer. But, you know, it's 34 years later, and they haven't still figured out a cure.
The witness mentioned Viagra, and they interviewed a guy the other day. I saw an interview in which a guy said, I'm 69 years old. What am I worried about long-term effects? Right. But the question is, come back to the consideration, if the option to even discuss banning is off the table, and to some extent, doesn't that strengthen the hand of the tobacco company?
It does, but what's different about this case is the conspiracy angle. See, now, this is the first case where they really have a wealth of information that no one ever had before. The tobacco industry has always won these cases because they basically said, look, you knew, it's your choice, now there's labels on the cigarettes, how can you not know?
Well, to the extent that Mr. Reynolds, as the witness we've been watching, has been called in to say, hey, if you put banning aside, we did the best we could because it's a legal product and after all people have choices, has he successfully at least taken a shot at saying we did the best we could?
But the real part of this case
which
is what
undermines
happened.
Conspiracy. I mean, right. You can't say we did the best we could and we
conspiracy goes back to the 50s. We're talking pre-Surgeon General warnings here. That's really what this case is about, okay? Now, although his personal opinion is there was no conspiracy, he was 11 years old at the time, and he's really not in a position to say what was going on.
So what use is he to the defense? If he's talking...
Why you even ask that question? I mean, probably you just figured out a likable witness, let's put a little zing in there. But reality is he didn't investigate that issue, and he's really not the person to say what went on with the bigwigs back then.
So I guess I'm saying is, what does the defense gain if they've gotten this guy, but he isn't dealing with what you've described as the heart of the conspiracy? That is, if he's really post the period of the most egregious part of the conspiracy from the plaintiff's point of view.
What happens with lawyers, you have a good witness, you see a good jury report, you look to get a little extra juice out of him. And it was an ending point of his testimony, so you figured you end on a high note. But it opens up some criticism. As we saw, you didn't really go back and look at the issues as to what the industry leaders were talking about back in the 50s. And that's what this case is about, because if the jury really feels that the tobacco industry dragged their feet, deliberately misled the American people on the dangers of cigarette smoke, that's a basis for the plaintiffs to win this case. After the warnings on cigarette packages, I think 1964 and beyond, you no longer have a case because you have a conscious decision to do it regardless of the warning.
Unless the lies about addictiveness, or unless there are lies about addictiveness, which may be part of what the plaintiffs are saying.
Well, but you know, that's in medical journals, and the common man can't be responsible for what's out there in a medical journal. Okay. So I think that's an unfair question.
Okay. Well, let's see. There are going to be a lot more questions asked before this trial is over, but we have no question about how good it is to have you with us, John. I'm sure you'll be rejoining us in the future. That's going to be the end of our coverage of this tobacco case for today. We're going to be turning to California, to another case we've been following here at Court TV, involving a man who was a surgeon in Latin America, but not in America, but performed some surgery and is charged with murder. But Carol Randolph will be here to guide you through it. I'll see you again on Thursday.